Sitting among the trees of Western Sydney lies a place that few people notice. A quiet cemetery, a scattering of weathered headstones. Names slowly fading after 2 centuries of time. At first glance, it appears little different from many old colonial burial grounds scattered across New South Wales, but this cemetery was meant to be part of a much bigger picture. Castlereagh Cemetery is all that remains of an ambitious town that was meant to help shape the future of the colony, a town that never truly existed. To understand how this lonely cemetery came to be, we need to step back to 1810. In 1810, newly appointed Governor Lachlan Macquarie embarked on a journey through the districts surrounding the Hawkesbury and Nepean rivers. The colony was growing, and Macquarie envisioned a series of planned settlements that'd provide safety. Safety from floods that regularly swept across the river flats, destroying crops, homes and livelihoods. These settlements would become known as the Macquarie Towns. Windsor, Richmond, Wilberforce, Pitt Town and Castlereagh. Named in honour of Lord Viscount Castlereagh, the proposed township would occupy elevated land overlooking the Nepean River. Macquarie imagined a thriving community taking shape here, complete with churches, schools, homes and businesses. Few settlers chose to relocate to the planned township, though. They preferred the Nepean River flats they started settling 15 years before Macquarie took office. Land grants that mostly faced onto the Nepean River, initially given to disbanded soldiers from the New South Wales Corps to supply timber for the colony. It was a densely forested region at the time. Convicts who were either emancipated, held a ticket of leave, or whose sentences had expired and were issued land grants as well. It goes without saying that this land was previously being used by Aboriginal people for its rich natural resources, the river, and the food it provided. Official confirmation of the grants came in 1803, when the then Governor Philip King was in office, with the expectation that their farming efforts would help sustain the young and growing colony. When it came to Macquarie's grand plan, Surveyor James Meehan surveyed a grid of streets and allocated blocks 2 kilometres from the Nepean in 1812. One of the first buildings constructed here was a 2-storey parsonage with outbuildings, built by William Cox in 1813. The same year the Blue Mountains were crossed by Blaxland, Lawson and Wentworth. A wood and brick schoolhouse was built several hundred metres away soon after, which also doubled as a church later known as Parson Fulton's Church, though eventually demolished due to termites and disrepair. A new church replaced it in 1878, built a kilometre away to the west. This is it here, overlooking the Nepean and the foothills of the Blue Mountains. Castlereagh did have its flaws. Settlers were already established closer to the river, and Macquarie's chosen location had poor soil and no proper water source. Some of those settlers, though, were eager to sell their grants and relocate due to flooding on the Nepean. Between 1799 and 1819, there were 10 floods alone. But unlike some of the other Macquarie towns, Castlereagh never really developed after the 1820s. Over time, Macquarie's vision of Castlereagh quietly faded. The failed township gradually slipped into history, and almost nothing remains to tell its story. Except for this cemetery. The Castlereagh General Cemetery is one of Australia's oldest surviving burial grounds. Established during the earliest decades of European settlement, it contains the graves of first fleeters, settlers, farmers, and families who helped shape the colony's frontier communities. Many of the early pioneers who worshipped in the old and present churches are laid to rest here. Earlier memorials have completely disappeared thanks to bushfires in the early 1800s, and nearly all the stones erected over the graves of soldiers from the Emu Stockade are gone. The earliest inscribed headstone we see today dates to 1814, that of a Mary Ann Smith. Many of the headstones that survive were erected during the first half of the 19th century, making the cemetery a remarkable window into colonial Australia. Walking among the graves feels like stepping back in time. You can't help but imagine the lives they had here on the river flats at the base of the Blue Mountains, at the far reaches of the colony. Floods, dealing with extreme heat and drought, and frigid temps in winter. It was a climate they were still trying to figure out in this, their new home, far from the one they were shipped from before regaining freedom again. A couple of notable people were buried here. Henry Fulton, originally transported here for his part in the Irish Rebellion, later pardoned, then becoming reverend and teacher in the district. He established what was known as the Castlereagh Academy, the first secondary school in Australia. His son-in-law John McHenry was the first local magistrate, and what we're seeing here is the Fulton McHenry Monument. While the majority of graves belong to original settlers, one grave in particular has attracted attention for generations, becoming the subject of local legend. It belongs to Sarah Simpson. Born Sarah Marshall, she arrived in New South Wales in 1818 aboard the convict ship Friendship after being sentenced to 7 years transportation. The crime itself was minor, involving the theft of clothing worth only a few pence. But in early 19th century Britain, such offences could carry severe punishment. Like thousands of others, Sarah's life changed forever when she arrived in the colony as a 20-year-old. After serving her sentence, she gained her freedom and settled in the district with a bloke named John Simpson, a tailor and fellow former convict. Together they built a life in the Castlereagh area and raised a large family of 8 kids. Though they never formally married, records often referred to them as husband and wife. Then, in December 1838, Sarah died at the age of 42. Historical records indicate that she likely succumbed to influenza during an outbreak affecting the district at the time. This is the spot Sarah was laid to rest. Over the years, another story emerged. Local folklore claimed that Sarah was attacked and murdered while walking home one evening. The tale grew with each retelling, eventually becoming one of the most enduring legends associated with the cemetery. Some versions even claimed that John Simpson married Sarah at her graveside after her death so that she might enter the next life free from sin. Whether fact or fiction, the legend has become woven into the history of Castlereagh Cemetery itself. It serves as a reminder that history is often shaped not just by records and documents, but also by the stories people choose to remember. Today, Castlereagh Cemetery remains the most tangible link to Macquarie's forgotten township. Cox's parsonage is gone. The original schoolhouse and church is gone. The planned town has long since disappeared beneath the passage of time. Yet this cemetery endures. Its weathered stones preserve the names of those who lived, worked, struggled and died during the earliest years of European settlement in New South Wales. More than 200 years after Governor Macquarie outlined his vision for Castlereagh, this quiet burial ground stands as the final witness to a town that never fulfilled its promise. A forgotten chapter in Australia's colonial past. And a reminder that sometimes the most important stories are found not in what survives, but in what has been lost.